Imagine spending 40 years of your life doing everything right. You wake up early, you work hard, you contribute to your retirement accounts, you skip vacations when money is tight, you pass on buying things you don't really need, you sacrifice today because you're counting on tomorrow, and then tomorrow finally arrives. You're 65 years old, you walk out of your workplace for the last time, your friends congratulate you, your family throws you a retirement party, you feel relieved, excited, free, but then something happens that nobody warned you about. The stock market crashes, not 5 years before retirement, not 10 years before retirement, 5 months after retirement, and suddenly the plan you've spent decades building starts to feel fragile. The truth is, retirement isn't just about how much money you save, it's about what happens to that money when you need it most. And that's where so many retirees get blindsided. Today, I want to talk about one of the most important retirement concepts that almost nobody fully understands. Yet it can mean the difference between leaving millions of dollars behind for your family or running out of money while you're still alive. In fact, two retirees can have the exact same portfolio, the same starting balance, the same investments, the same withdrawal amount, the same average rate of return, and still end up with completely different outcomes. One finishes retirement with millions of dollars remaining. The other runs out of money before age 80. How is that possible? Because retirement isn't just about returns. It's about the order those returns arrive. And once you understand this concept, you'll never look at retirement planning the same way again. Let's start with a simple example. Meet retiree A and retiree B. Both retire at age 65. Both have accumulated $500,000. Both use a balanced portfolio. Both withdraw $25,000 during their first year of retirement. Both increase their withdrawals over time to keep up with inflation. Everything looks identical on paper. If you were looking at their plans side by side, you would probably assume they would experience roughly the same retirement. But that's not what happens. Retiree A happens to retire during one of the most challenging periods in market history. The economy struggles, inflation rises, stocks go nowhere for years. Every year he continues withdrawing money because he has to pay bills. He still needs groceries. He still needs health care. He still needs to keep the lights on. The problem is that he's withdrawing money from a portfolio that's shrinking, and every withdrawal becomes more damaging than the one before it. Imagine pulling water from a bucket that is already leaking. By the time the market finally recovers, something devastating has occurred. There isn't enough capital left to fully participate in the rebound. The recovery comes, the gains arrive, but the portfolio is too depleted to benefit from them. Eventually, the money runs out. Now let's look at retiree B. Same portfolio, same starting amount, same withdrawal strategy, but this retiree gets lucky. Instead of retiring into a difficult market, he retires at the beginning of a powerful bull market. Stocks surge, the portfolio grows. Even while withdrawals are being taken, the account balance keeps climbing. 10 years later, the portfolio is larger than when retirement started. 20 years later, it's worth several times more. 30 years later, there are still millions of dollars remaining. Nothing changed except timing. And that's the lesson. The market doesn't care when you retire. The market doesn't know that your paycheck has stopped. The market doesn't know that you're depending on your portfolio to provide income. It simply does what it does. Sometimes it rises, sometimes it falls, sometimes it spends years doing absolutely nothing. And that's why retirement can be so dangerous for people who rely entirely on hope. Hope is not a retirement strategy. Crossing your fingers is not a retirement strategy. Assuming the market will cooperate because you've worked hard is not a retirement strategy. The market has never made promises to anyone. That's why understanding sequence of return risk is so important. Sequence of return risk simply means that the timing of market returns matters far more when you're withdrawing money than when you're accumulating money. When you're still working, market crashes are annoying. When you're retired, market crashes can be life-changing. Think about it. When you're 35 years old and the market falls 30%, you keep contributing. You buy more shares, you have decades ahead of you. Time is your greatest ally. But when you're 70 years old and withdrawing income every month, a market crash hits differently. Now you're selling assets. Now you're removing money while prices are depressed. Now time isn't necessarily on your side. And that's why the first 5 years of retirement are often the most critical years you'll ever experience financially. They obsess over which stock to buy. They debate whether a fund will earn 9% or 10%, but they never stop to ask the most important question. What happens if the market performs terribly right after I retire? Not eventually, not someday. What if it happens immediately? Because that's the risk nobody wants to think about. Yet it's the exact risk that can destroy decades of careful saving. And here's what makes this even more frustrating. Most retirement calculators don't prepare you for this reality. They assume smooth returns. They assume consistency. They assume life unfolds neatly and predictably. But that's not how the real world works. Real markets are messy. Real markets are emotional. Real markets can spend years disappointing investors. History has shown us this repeatedly. There have been periods when investors experienced incredible wealth creation. There have also been periods when investors waited 10 years or longer just to break even. The danger is that retirement doesn't pause while waiting for markets to recover. Bills keep arriving, expenses continue, life keeps moving forward. That's why retirees need something stronger than optimism. They need a system, a framework, a defense strategy designed specifically for those vulnerable early years. And that's where the three-move defense comes into play. These aren't complicated Wall Street tricks. They aren't secret investment formulas. They're practical rules designed to protect your retirement from the one thing you cannot control: market timing. The first move is called the glide path. And this one alone can save retirees from making one of the biggest mistakes I see over and over again. Many people approach retirement like it's a light switch. One day they're aggressively invested. The next day they're retired. Nothing changes. No preparation, no transition, no gradual adjustment, just full speed ahead. And that's dangerous. Imagine driving a car at 90 miles per hour toward a sharp turn. Would you wait until the exact moment you reach the curve before hitting the brakes? Of course not. You would begin slowing down beforehand. Retirement works the same way. The years leading into retirement should be a transition period, a gradual shift, a carefully planned adjustment, not a sudden reaction. Unfortunately, many investors do the opposite. Some remain heavily invested in stocks until the very last moment. Others panic a few years before retirement and move enormous portions of their portfolio into conservative investments all at once. Both approaches create problems. One exposes retirees to excessive market risk. The other sacrifices too much future growth. The goal is balance. The goal is preparation. The goal is creating a smoother landing rather than a financial cliff. Think of it like an airplane approaching a runway. The pilot doesn't wait until the final second to descend. The descent begins gradually, steadily, intentionally. That's exactly how retirement planning should work. 5 years before retirement, you begin making small adjustments. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional. Just a measured reduction in risk over time. This approach gives your portfolio a chance to adapt without sacrificing the growth you'll still need during retirement. Because here's another truth many people overlook. Retirement doesn't last 5 years. For many people, retirement could last 30 years or longer. That means growth still matters. Inflation still matters. Your money must continue working for you. The challenge isn't eliminating risk. The challenge is managing risk intelligently. And that's what the glide path is designed to accomplish. It's not about fear. It's about preparation. It's not about predicting a crash. It's about being ready if one happens. And as we'll discuss next, preparation becomes even more powerful when combined with the second move of the retirement defense strategy. That's the income floor. And for many retirees, this single concept can completely change the way they experience market downturns. Let's talk about something that helps retirees sleep at night. Not a stock, not a mutual fund, not some complicated financial product that nobody can explain without a 40-page brochure. I'm talking about peace of mind, because when you're retired, peace of mind has value, a tremendous amount of value. The older I get, the more I realize that financial success isn't just about maximizing returns. It's about minimizing stress. It's about knowing that no matter what headlines appear tomorrow morning, you're going to be okay. And that's exactly why the income floor is so powerful. Think about what most retirees do. They spend 40 years accumulating money, then retirement arrives and suddenly they have to reverse the process. Now they need their investments to provide income every month, every year, for decades. The problem is that many retirees keep every dollar invested in assets that can fluctuate dramatically. One day their portfolio is worth $700,000. 3 months later, it might be worth $550,000. Then 6 months later, it could be worth $620,000. That's emotionally exhausting. And if you're withdrawing income during those declines, it becomes financially dangerous too. This is where the income floor changes everything. The concept is surprisingly simple. Before retirement, set aside enough stable assets to cover several years of living expenses. Not money invested in volatile stocks, not speculative investments, not assets that could drop 30% when the market gets nervous. Stable money, predictable money, money that exists for one purpose and one purpose only: to fund your lifestyle when markets are struggling. I want you to imagine something. It's January, you're retired. The stock market suddenly falls 25%. Television anchors are panicking. Financial commentators are predicting disaster. Your neighbors are worried. Friends are calling you asking if they should sell everything. But you aren't stressed. Why? Because your next 3 years of income are already sitting safely outside the stock market. Your bills are covered. Your lifestyle is protected. Your retirement paycheck is secure. Suddenly, the market crash becomes an inconvenience instead of a catastrophe. That's the power of preparation. Too many retirees are forced into bad decisions because they don't have options. When markets fall, they must sell. They have no choice. And selling during a downturn is exactly what causes permanent damage. Remember, losses become permanent when you lock them in. A temporary market decline doesn't have to ruin your retirement, but selling assets at depressed prices year after year absolutely can. The income floor gives you flexibility. It gives you time. And in investing, time is often the most valuable asset of all. Think about the great bear markets throughout history: the dot-com crash, the financial crisis, the pandemic panic. Each one felt terrifying in the moment. People genuinely believed the world was falling apart. Yet eventually, markets recovered. They always have. The challenge is surviving long enough to benefit from that recovery. And that's exactly what an income floor allows you to do. It creates breathing room. Instead of reacting emotionally, you can respond rationally. Instead of selling at the worst possible time, you can wait patiently. Instead of becoming another victim of sequence risk, you become resilient. I've spoken with countless retirees who tell me the same thing. The market volatility doesn't scare them nearly as much as uncertainty does. They don't like not knowing where next year's income will come from. They don't like wondering whether they can afford unexpected expenses. They don't like feeling vulnerable. The income floor removes much of that uncertainty. It's a reminder that your retirement isn't dependent on what happens this week or even this year. It's built to withstand storms. And every successful retirement plan needs storm protection. Now, some people hear this and immediately object. They say, but cash doesn't grow. That's true. Cash isn't supposed to grow. That's not its job. Its job is protection. Its job is stability. Its job is ensuring that when markets become irrational, you don't have to. Think about homeowners insurance. Nobody complains because their insurance policy didn't generate a 12% return last year. They value it because it's there when disaster strikes. The income floor serves a similar purpose. It isn't designed to maximize returns. It's designed to maximize Survivability. And survivability is what keeps retirement plans alive long enough to succeed. Now let's move to the third and perhaps most overlooked strategy of all, bucket sequencing. This is where everything begins working together. Most retirees think of their portfolio as one giant pile of money. They log into their account, they see a balance. And that's it. Assets that can experience volatility, but historically have delivered strong long-term returns. This bucket is your engine. It's what helps your portfolio keep pace with inflation and potentially grow over decades. Now, here's where most retirees make mistakes. They withdraw money without considering which bucket should provide it. They treat every market environment exactly the same. Good year, bad year, doesn't matter. They withdraw from whatever account is easiest. That sounds harmless, but over time it can become incredibly expensive. Let's look at why. Suppose the stock market has just delivered an outstanding year. Your growth bucket has risen significantly. This is a wonderful time to harvest gains. You're selling strength, you're taking profits, you're replenishing your safety reserves from a position of confidence. Now imagine the opposite. The market falls 25%. Would this be a smart time to sell stocks? Of course not. You'd be selling assets after they've already declined. You'd be converting temporary losses into permanent losses. That's why bucket sequencing matters. In difficult market environments, withdrawals come from the safety bucket. In average environments, income-producing assets help carry the load. In strong environments, growth assets can be harvested strategically. Each bucket serves its purpose. Each bucket protects the others. And together they create a retirement system that's far more durable than simply withdrawing from the same place every year. Think of it like managing water during a drought. You don't drain your most important reservoir first. You use resources strategically. You preserve what needs preserving. You replenish what needs replenishing. Retirement works the same way. The goal isn't just having money, the goal is managing money intelligently. And when retirees understand bucket sequencing, something remarkable happens. Market crashes lose much of their power over their emotions because they know exactly what they're going to do. No panic, no guessing, no emotional decisions, just a plan, a simple, repeatable process. And that matters more than most people realize. Because the greatest threat to retirement success often isn't the market. It's our reaction to the market. Fear causes people to sell. Greed causes people to chase returns. Uncertainty causes people to abandon good plans at the worst possible moments. A well-designed retirement strategy reduces those emotional mistakes. It creates structure, and structure creates confidence. Now let's revisit our original retiree, the individual who retired in 1966, the retiree who encountered one of the most difficult investment environments imaginable. Inflation surged, markets struggled, years passed with little progress. Many retirement plans failed during that period, but what if this retiree had followed the three-move defense? What if he had gradually reduced risk before retirement? What if he had established an income floor? What if he had used bucket sequencing instead of selling stocks whenever money was needed? Everything changes. The market challenges still exist. Inflation still happens. Volatility still occurs. But the outcome becomes dramatically different. Instead of being forced to sell assets at depressed prices, he waits. Instead of draining his future wealth, he protects it. Instead of running out of money, he preserves enough capital to participate when markets finally recover. And that's the key. Retirement success isn't about avoiding every problem. That's impossible. Problems will come. Market declines will happen. Recessions will occur. Inflation will surprise us. Unexpected expenses will appear. The goal is not perfection. The goal is resilience. The goal is creating a retirement plan strong enough to withstand life's inevitable challenges. Because retirement isn't won during good years. Good years are easy. Anyone can feel like a genius during a bull market. Retirement is won during difficult years. It's won when fear is everywhere. It's won when headlines are negative. It's won when everyone else is making emotional decisions and you're calmly following your plan. That's what separates successful retirees from struggling retirees. Not intelligence, not luck, not complicated investment strategies, discipline, preparation, patience, and perhaps most importantly, understanding the risks that actually matter. Many people spend years worrying about the wrong things. They worry about finding the perfect stock. They worry about beating the market. They worry about tiny differences in returns. Meanwhile, the real threat is quietly sitting in the background. Sequence of return risk. The risk that poor market performance early in retirement permanently damages a portfolio. Once you understand that risk, your entire perspective changes. You stop focusing exclusively on growth. You start focusing on sustainability. You stop asking, how much can I make? And start asking, how do I make sure I never run out? Because at the end of the day, that's what retirement planning is really about. Not maximizing every dollar, not chasing every opportunity, not trying to predict the future. It's about creating freedom, the freedom to enjoy your life, the freedom to spend time with family, the freedom to travel, the freedom to pursue passions you've postponed for decades, and most importantly, the freedom to do all of those things without constantly worrying about money. That's what a great retirement plan delivers, not just wealth, peace, security, confidence. And when you combine the glide path, the income floor, and bucket sequencing, you're giving yourself something incredibly valuable. You're giving yourself options. Now, protecting your nest egg becomes just as important as growing it. That's a shift many people underestimate, and it's one reason why some retirees struggle even when they've accumulated substantial wealth, because retirement isn't just an investment challenge, it's a behavioral challenge. Can you stay calm during market declines? Can you follow your plan when everyone around you is panicking? Can you avoid making emotional decisions when headlines become frightening? Those questions matter more than most people realize. I've seen investors with average portfolios achieve extraordinary outcomes because they remain disciplined. I've also seen investors with excellent portfolios sabotage themselves through poor decisions. The difference wasn't intelligence. The difference was behavior. Successful retirees understand something incredibly important. The market is outside their control. Their actions are not. They don't waste energy trying to predict the next recession. They don't spend every day guessing where stocks will go next month. Instead, they focus on preparation. They build systems. They create guardrails. They establish rules before emotions enter the picture. And that's exactly what the three-move defense accomplishes. It creates a framework for decision-making. When markets rise, you know what to do. When markets fall, you know what to do. When inflation increases, you know what to do. You don't have to invent solutions in the middle of a crisis. You already have a plan. That's powerful because uncertainty creates fear, and fear often creates mistakes. The retiree who panics and sells after a market decline usually isn't responding to numbers. They're responding to emotions. They're responding to uncertainty. They're responding to the fear of losing everything. A solid retirement strategy reduces that fear by replacing uncertainty with structure. You know where your income is coming from. You know how long your reserves can last. You know which assets you'll use first. You know which assets you'll leave untouched. That clarity changes everything. Now let's discuss something that's often overlooked in retirement conversations: flexibility. One of the greatest advantages a retiree can have is the ability to make small adjustments when necessary. The most successful retirees don't view their spending as completely fixed. They understand that life has seasons. Some years require more spending, other years require less. For example, many retirees spend more money during the early years of retirement. Think about professional athletes. They don't start training after the championship game begins. They prepare months and years in advance. The same principle applies to retirement. The people who appear calm during financial storms aren't calm because they know the future. They're calm because they've prepared for multiple possible futures. They understand that uncertainty is part of the journey, and they've built a plan designed to handle it. That's the real objective. Not predicting, preparing, not guessing, planning, not hoping, building. Because hope is wonderful in many areas of life. But hope alone isn't enough for retirement. Retirement deserves a strategy, a thoughtful strategy, a disciplined strategy, a strategy capable of surviving difficult environments. Let's return one final time to those two retirees we discussed earlier. Same starting balance, same withdrawal rate, same investments, same average returns, yet one ended retirement with millions of dollars. The other ran out of money. That story should serve as a reminder to all of us. Small decisions can create enormous differences over time. The sequence of returns mattered, the withdrawal strategy mattered, the preparation mattered, and perhaps most importantly, the response to adversity mattered. That's the lesson I hope you take away from today's discussion. You cannot control when the next market downturn arrives. You cannot control inflation. You cannot control interest rates. You cannot control economic cycles, but you can control how prepared you are. You can control how much cash reserve you maintain. You can control how you structure your portfolio. You can control your withdrawal strategy. You can control your behavior. And those controls are often enough because successful retirement isn't built on certainty, it's built on readiness. The retiree who enters retirement with a thoughtful plan has a tremendous advantage over the retiree who simply hopes everything works out. One is relying on luck, the other is relying on preparation. And if there's one thing I've learned from studying retirement outcomes, it's this: preparation wins far more often than luck, every single day. So if you're approaching retirement, don't focus exclusively on how much money you've accumulated. That's important, but it's only part of the equation. Spend equal time thinking about how you'll protect that money, how you'll withdraw that money, how you'll manage risk during those critical early years, because the first 5 years of retirement can influence the next 25. The decisions you make at the beginning can echo for decades, and the retirees who understand that reality place themselves in a position of strength. They aren't hoping the market cooperates. They're prepared whether it does or not. That's what creates confidence. That's what creates stability. And ultimately, that's what creates financial freedom. The kind of freedom that allows you to enjoy retirement the way it was meant to be enjoyed. Not worrying, not stressing, not constantly checking market headlines, but living, spending time with the people you love, creating memories, pursuing passions, enjoying the reward for decades of hard work, because that's what retirement should be. Not a period of fear, not a period of uncertainty, but a period of opportunity, a period of fulfillment, a period of freedom earned through preparation and discipline. Remember the three-move defense, the glide path, the income floor, and bucket sequencing. Simple concepts, powerful results. They won't eliminate every challenge. Nothing can, but they can dramatically improve your odds of surviving the challenges that matter most. And in retirement, that's often the difference between merely hoping you'll be okay and knowing you'll be okay. Stay disciplined, stay patient, trust your plan, and never forget this: retirement success is not determined by what the market does next year. It's determined by how well prepared you are when the market eventually does what markets have always done: surprise everyone. When you prepare for that reality, you stop fearing the future, and that's when true financial confidence begins.